welcome back to my Hello, welcome back to my next Java video. I think I'll start by putting myself in the corner. Aha! Travel size! First thing I'd like to talk about this week is something I should have been talking about last week, was setting up the environment variables. For any of you who have actually set up any of that Java installation from last week, you'll find that it doesn't work because the environment variables weren't set up. Here's how you do it. You first go to Start, go to My Computer, right-click on that, and go to Properties. Within there, you're looking for something about environment variables. Sometimes it's the button right at the very bottom. Sometimes you have to go to the Advanced tab first and then in the very bottom. Once you click on that, you want to go to the section on the bottom, and then you want to add New, and then for the name you want to type Java Home or Java_Home. And put the path to the actual Java JDK right there. You can find that if you browse to C, Program Files, Java, and it's going to be in there. And it's going to be the whole path to that. It looks like that, I see, right there on the screen. Alternatively, you can go to Path, put a semicolon at the end of the last line, and then put it there instead. Either way works, but that will actually get you the executed code like I did last week. That's pretty much it. Alright, moving on to the next topic. Next thing, I was talking about a program that makes it easier to work with the Java code, something that will format certain ways the text shows up and will output the code for you. It's a really nice tool. The one that I decided to try out was Eclipse. To get that, just go to their site, just Google Eclipse. It should be the first thing that shows up for eclipse.org or something to that effect. Go in there, find the download section, and just download it straight from there. Now once you got it, you're going to need one other thing. And that's the Apache Commons code. I'm actually following along with this with the instructional video by this guy Derek Banis. If you just search installing Eclipse on YouTube, he shows up. So I'm really learning a lot of this from him, and it worked out really well. So if you want to learn direct from him, there's a link right there. Otherwise, the installation, we're also going to go ahead and put in the Apache Commons stuff. I'm not really sure what exactly this does. I haven't used it myself yet in the coding, but just go scroll and throw it in. I'm sure we'll all figure it out eventually what it's for. But you can Google Apache Commons. It'll take you to the site. At the top, put /lang after the address, and that will give you the downloads button down at the bottom. It should be 3.1. Now if you grab that, go ahead and install it to the same directory you installed Eclipse to. Now setting up Eclipse. This is how you do it. You open up Eclipse, and then in the very bottom, well, first off, before we get into all that, what you might want to do is go and make sure that the JDK is set up in the Properties section of Eclipse. It's usually set up, it was set up for me automatically as soon as I started launching it. You might want to check on yours because I'm not sure exactly where you got Java from, or if you followed my previous video, but you want to go through the Properties menu and make sure it is in fact set up for the JRE and the JDK that you are currently using. That aside, go to the section on the far left, right click in there and create a new Java project. And there, just give it whatever name you like. We're going to call ours GameProgs, so we're eventually going to want to look into game programming, and then hit next and finish. And then once you have that directory, right click on it, go to new, and then set up a new folder, call that LIV. Right click on the LIV folder, go to import, then it's going to give you a small prompt. Then go to general, then file system. And there, you're going to be locating the Apache Commons language pack that we downloaded earlier. Select that. It's going to give you a selection of Apache files for you to check. Check the 4 that are there, not the text files. The .jar files that are there. Go ahead and OK and finish. There you go. Now that's added. Last thing, if you've already started any Java files before, or you want to add them to this project, add them to the SRC folder in your projects folder. It should be projects, whatever the name of the project was. In our case, it's GameProgs. And then add the files to that SRC file. I've got some stuff I worked on this last week, 3 different files actually. I'm going to put those in there. And then just right click and hit refresh, and they should show right up. If you double click on each of the Java files on the side, they'll show up as tabs at the top. And that's pretty much how you set up Eclipse. I really don't want to ramble across this video more than I have to, and unfortunately I've learned a lot more things this week than I'm going to have time for in this video. But one thing I'm going to show you is how to do frames in a file. The way Java seems to work is that it's made up of a whole host of libraries that show you how to do all sorts of things, anywhere from how you communicate to the screen to setting up frames, which I'm about to show you. But it seems all these languages are in small packages that we have to add to the file for it to make use of. For instance, I'm going to be using the container and setbounds commands, which something called AWT needs to be imported at the top in order for me to use that. If I don't import that first, those will not work. So I have to make sure everything's imported that's relevant to the objects that I'm using, or keywords. Sure what that is. Anyways, for frames, we're going to want to use the import javax.swing frame.star. Now the star means it's going to include everything under the swing statements. We can include just specific things. I'm just going to include all of it because that's easier, but for more efficiency it'd probably be better if I import just what I need. It's probably frames or something along those lines, but anyways. The whole structure of what we have it in is a class. Under the class we have a function or an object. In this case our object is called mainFrame. It's sitting under a class called makeFrame. To create the actual new frame we're going to call something called JFrame, give it a name, and set it to a new JFrame. That's what it looks like right there. I'm also going to set up a container. What it is that I'm going to have a frame. The frame is going to be the window that everything sits in. The container is going to be an individual object that sits inside of that frame. And those are going to be little invisible boxes that all my text is going to be based on. In the future I'm going to have other little objects like buttons, checkboxes, text fields, whatever it is I'm throwing in there, they're going to probably be in a container and keep them, well, contained within that section. In this case I'm defining a container called pane, and if you see what follows it, it's myFrame.getContentPane. What this is I would have to say getContentPane for every time I want to call a container. By putting this little line of code in with the pane, I can just write pane and it will represent that other code. So it will save me time in the long run, so I won't have to type this as many times. Before we can mess around with the container, we have to set up the frame. These few lines of code right here are defining the various aspects of the frame. The title and the preferred dimensions, it's setting it to visible, and it's setting that if I close it, it will in fact close the whole program and terminate it. And below that we have 4 different sections, and each section has 3 lines of code. This is where I'm defining the bounds of the containers within the frames. The first line that I have on each of them is defining the text or the defined object that's within that label or in that container. The second line is defining the bounds. It's defining that it's those dimensions. It's using those 4 numbers. The first 2 numbers are the x and the y coordinate signifying where the container starts, the top left corner of that container specifically within the frame. The third and fourth number, those are the x and y coordinates for the dimension of the box itself. Third line in each section of these labels, that's actually adding the container. So we can define it, but you have to specify that you're adding it to the frame. And that's what those are for. The last line up here, myFrame.pack, I'm not 100% sure what that does. I noticed that the dimensions are a little awkward if I don't throw that in there. So make sure that's in there. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly what it does, but it has something to do with the dimensions of the frame and or containers. I know something recommended to be thrown in there. It's like, okay, let's throw it in, sure. That's about all I really have time for in this video. Next week I'd like to get into how to move data points from one file to the next, or one class to the next. Also a little bit more into if, for, and while loops, some of the fundamentals and meat and potatoes of it. Need a little bit more time to learn some of that stuff, so give me a week and I'm sure I'll have something to present. But that's bare basics, and thank you for watching. Fire!